How's it going, everyone? So this is a security unfiltered product review where, we're diving into the Sonrai Security permissions firewall. This is something brand new that they just came out with, and I don't think really anything else on the market compares to it in terms of the power that it has within the environment, the ability to enable the engineer to make the most informed decision possible as quickly and efficiently as possible. So those are huge things when we're talking about very large environments in the cloud. You can have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of accounts and permissions and roles, and all of it is all tied together in different ways, and it can get very confusing. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here, right? And this is really kind of, my overall impressions of it, right? So first thing that I'm looking at is this upper left corner here, right? Where it has listed out all the different orgs and OUs within that org. One of the things with the cloud is that it can be very difficult, especially with other tools. I've used a lot of other cloud security tools on the market, and it can be very difficult to identify exactly, what AWS, billing account you're in, right? And just talking about AWS overall, because that's the one that I have the most experience with. Just identifying which one you're in another console outside of AWS can be a little bit difficult, which is a critical thing when you're talking about cloud security, right? Because you need to know where you are at all times, and you need to be able to make informed decisions based on where you are. And so this layout here, this is fantastic. This really tells you exactly, where you are, what account you're touching, all that sort of stuff. So that's fantastic. And then here, it looks like we have a one-click do-it-all button, which is, it's great, but it makes, engineers and managers especially, really nervous, right? You probably wouldn't click this button unless you're very comfortable with the solution and you have, done a good amount of the work yourself to ensure, like, hey, this is, this is something that we can do safely within our environment. And then next to that, we have the users and roles with excessive privileges. This is a key one, actually, because as a cloud admin or a cloud engineer, it's really hard to tell what is overprivileged, what is overpermissioned. Do I need this role? Do I need this user anymore? Those sorts of things are very difficult to tell, and the solution obviously makes it very easy for you, to dive into it, right? And then we have zombies. So zombie accounts are, unused IAM users and roles. And that's another huge thing, right? I can't tell you the amount of times that I've gone into an environment at a new company, and they say, hey, we have a very robust IAM process of decommissioning roles and users and onboarding them. And immediately when I go into their environment, I'm finding many accounts and roles that, that shouldn't exist, right? That just simply shouldn't exist if they were doing the process correctly. And typically they'll come back with something like, oh, we didn't do the process for this account yet and this and that, right? But as you live in the environment more and more, you see it more frequently. And it's really valuable to have something here to where you can say, okay, it hasn't been used in a year or 2 years or whatever it might be, right? Whatever that threshold is. And it shows up here and we can quarantine it immediately. Now, it doesn't remove it from the environment overall, it just disables it, right? It just makes it unable to operate. And if something does break, when you do that, you're able to go back and revert the change pretty easily. Unused services is another thing. When we're talking about the cloud and cloud security overall, you really want to limit as much as possible what your company, what your teams can do within the cloud, but you don't want to hinder them from doing their job. So it's really important that you identify what the development teams are doing in the environment, what they need access to, and then allowing them to only have access to those services and giving them a process and a procedure for requesting new services. This is a huge sticking point for me that I've seen at several different companies, several different environments, very large environments, very small environments even, where they just allow anyone access to the full, AWS suite of services, right? And that's a huge, huge mistake because you're going to incur costs that you would not expect, and you're going to be billed in ways that you are not expecting. And then, of course, we have the regions enabled. Another thing, right? It's kind of like a key item with securing any cloud is ensuring that what you're deploying is only deployed within the regions that you expect it to be deployed in. Because you're going to run into an issue with cloud sprawl. In some way, all of these are identifying cloud sprawl in different ways, right? Unused services, that's a cloud sprawl issue, or that's what it's considered to be, right? The unused regions, that's another cloud sprawl. Zombie accounts, that's a cloud sprawl. And then you have excessive privileges with roles and users. That's another way of saying cloud sprawl that as security professionals, we have to be able to address and control. But honestly, it's been pretty difficult up until now. We've kind of been putting this sort of thing on the back burner for the most part and hoping that nothing goes wrong in our environments. Another thing that I really want to take a look at is how we interact with protecting these different services and the things that are going on within the services. So let's just click protect on Amazon Guard Duty real quick. And you could see here, this is unused, so the action is disabled. So we can go ahead and do that. We can absolutely, this one is has the possibility of having sensitive permissions, and you can drill down, a little bit more. Or there's no current usage, so you can add in the exception and whatnot. But we'll go ahead and protect it real quick just to see, it says protected pending. So let's take a look at the pending changes here. And this is a great way to stage your changes. When we're talking about really large environments and anything really that with IAM that you want to do, you want to make sure that it is staged properly. Because if it's not staged, it needs different forms of review, plain and simple. When you're making these sort of changes, you need a different level of review. You need to be able to put it into a queue like we have here and have someone else come over and do a sanity check, as I call it. And that sanity check is just going to, you describe what you want to do, what you expect it to do, and then that person reviews the changes and they're able to say, yeah, this is going to do exactly that. You're allowed to do it. You're good to go. And this also makes your life a whole lot easier if you're in a heavily regulated or heavily restricted environment and you're only allowed to make changes like this during change windows. This allows you to actually, queue up your changes like we have here, have someone review them ahead of time, have it all signed off in your change management board review, And then during the change time frame, we'll just submit all the changes, right? So we'll submit them. And now we're generating the template. This is going to take, a little bit, right? And when it's done generating the template, it'll actually give you the ability to deploy it or download it, and then you run it yourself. So let's go ahead and just take a look at that real quick. It's not going to work for me because I don't have the right permissions within this test environment, but you get the idea. And you can also download that template and, run it from the command line if you really wanted to. But from here, let's just revert the changes back to the pending state since I couldn't, deploy it as expected and whatnot, which isn't a problem. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few other things. So another thing that I want to point out, that as a cloud security engineer, every cloud needs to have a just-in-time permissions capability. AWS doesn't really have that, or at least it's not very well designed or built in right now. Time is it's saying I need access to this resource for a small period of time, and I don't need it outside of that. I just need to do a change. I need to do some work with it, whatever it might be, right? All right, so one of the very common tasks that really anyone in the cloud would be doing, or specifically AWS, is creating a VPC. So let's go ahead and take a look at doing that. Let's see if what I do will work. Let's just add a number there so it is not a duplicate name. And you can see I'm not authorized to perform this action. Now, I didn't create a rule or anything like that within the Cloud Permissions Firewall to block me from doing that. All right, I was blocked, natively already by doing that. So let's go ahead and go back, and you'll see, I'm not in the exceptions list or anything like that. So I'm definitely not allowed to do that. So if we go over here, you'll see this request come in. Right now, I want to emphasize I am configured as a self-approver, but in a better environment or in a non-test environment, you would want to have someone else, potentially the manager or something like that, be the approver for this sort of request. And so I'll go ahead and approve that request. You'll see request submitted successfully. Okay. So if we go ahead and go back into the VPC, same exact sort of thing that we're trying to do. We're going to name it just something different. You can see now I can actually perform that action. And it happened pretty quick too. And you'll see it's deployed and everything like that. So this is a really powerful tool because it's providing you protections right out of the box, right away in your environment. Right, that I have here. This is, my first impressions going through it. It's very simple to use. It's very easy to understand what's going on in your environment, which is a critical thing that's becoming more and more important as companies migrate more things into the cloud and deploy more things natively into the cloud. As cloud security engineers, as cloud security experts, it is very difficult for us to stay on top of this in any environment. Just to be completely honest with you, your cloud security team is probably struggling, staying on top of everything that's going on in the environment and lowering the attack surface. Some companies do better than others, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be, something that you don't know that's living in your environment that'll impact how you provide security for your company. So with that, I really appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some sort of insight into this solution, kind of the mind of the cloud security engineer, so to speak. All right. Thanks, everyone.